Hi, I'm Christina O'Flaherty. I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice in Washington, D.C., and I've been making a series of videos sharing with you some of the things that my clients commonly bring in and how we address it in psychotherapy. Um, Lately, I have been talking about feelings and how to navigate sort of that tight spot that we sometimes get into when we're feeling something very strongly, like anger or sadness, and ways to kind of manage really intense feelings in a way that is skillful and useful to us. Um, Last time I made a video, I talked about something called self-compassion. And self-compassion really has three components to it. The first is just noticing that you are experiencing some kind of distress, some kind of emotional upset. And even this part is difficult for a lot of people who commonly tend to kind of brush over their feelings or stuff their feelings down or try to push their feelings away in some way. Just noticing that you're having some sort of a difficult emotional experience is the first part. And then being very kind to yourself, being compassionate to yourself and understanding with yourself in that moment. So you can think of self-compassion as being towards yourself the way that you would be toward your best friend who calls you up and says, you know, I had this really hard day and this is what happened. And many people would naturally give support and empathy and understanding. And we have this capacity to do this for ourselves. And interestingly, in the research, what we found is that we get the same benefit. We get the same benefit of giving ourselves this kind of emotional care and concern as we would if we called a friend and talked to a friend. So we kind of, when we are self-compassionate, we go into our relationships with our cup already a little bit filled. We don't rely on other people to help us regulate our emotions as much or at all. And the third component to self-compassion is noticing that what you're experiencing may not be the exact same thing that someone else has experienced, but recognizing that this experience does not make you different, is not, you are not a victim of it, but that you are experiencing something that all people experience in some way. All people at some point in their lives get pretty angry. All people at some point in their lives are grieving, have lost someone that they love, are sad. These are common human experiences, and recognizing how that joins you to something larger than yourself rather than isolates you in your pain. Today, I wanted to talk about self-compassion because we're finding in the research that it is such an important quality, and it can be taught, and it can become a habit that we do for ourselves that really increases our well-being and even increases our ability to stay with a task, to achieve more. They've done a lot of research on self-compassion and weight loss and how people who are more self-compassionate tend to be able to lose more weight. Because they're able to stay with something that's really difficult, like healthy eating or exercise. And we kind of think sometimes that we have to beat ourselves up or be harsh with ourselves in order to accomplish a goal, but we're finding in the research that that's not true, and that this concept of self-compassion can really help us reach our goals. So what I wanted to talk about was this is sort of like that harshness that we often kind of give ourselves in the face of our own emotional suffering, which is, of course, the opposite of self-compassion. Let's say that you have a conversation with a good friend and you begin to feel like she hasn't understood what you meant or misunderstood you, and she's upset with you or you're upset with her. Anyway, it feels very bad, and you get off the phone and you feel bad, and within seconds it transforms into you beating yourself up. I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't feel misunderstood. And we talk ourselves out. We tell ourselves a story about our emotional experience in order to move away from it. And we sometimes this goes to extremes with people, and they really beat themselves up for having had this experience. And that is not useful and not helpful, because it keeps our feelings away, and it doesn't allow us to move through them, or them to move through us, our feelings to move through us. So things get a stuck feeling, and resentment builds, or this feeling of being misunderstood builds, and then what happens? We get to a place where it's a big deal, and it can't be contained any longer. So I wanted to talk about that, and how you can instead recognize that you're telling yourself something about your experience that might not be true or useful, and that just by being with the feeling of, let's say, being misunderstood by your friend, allows it to pass and allows it to move through, and can give you access to a more skillful, useful way of dealing with that situation. So I hope that's useful. I hope that you can apply that in some way, and I would love to hear if you do. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.